So last weekend we did a video on a couple of JoyCon controllers that I thought were pretty good. They surprised me because some of these companies are getting pretty close to recreating one-to-one Nintendo's own JoyCon controllers. Still some things off, obviously, but it's very close, much closer than it used to be. But there was one problem. After that video went out, they were gone. Yeah, it took so long for those to get to me. I ordered them close to the beginning of this year and they just got to me recently. Their listing was just gone. They just had them taken down, so it was impossible for anyone to even go looking for those if they wanted them. So I thought to myself, I'll keep an eye out for any Joy-Cons that look interesting and could possibly be one that's easier to get and would still work as a pretty good Joy-Con replacement at, I wanted to shoot for like half the price of what current Joy-Cons for Nintendo are going for. And then right on cue, a viewer by the name of Roger mentioned a pair of Joy-Con controllers on Amazon that are Prime shipped and will get to you like the next day. I ordered them and they literally showed up at my door like the next morning, so it was pretty quick. And those are the Vive Fox Joy-Con controllers for the Nintendo Switch. And just by looking at the front of the box, I think this is gonna be pretty fun. So I thought today we would take a look at these, kind of like what we did with the other Joy-Con controllers last week, see if these are a good enough replacement at its price for first-party Joy-Con controllers. These are $43 Prime shipped on Amazon, and they get to you quick, like I said. So much better than having to order from like AliExpress and it taking weeks or even months to get to you. So I guess we'll start by looking around the box here. Right on the front, Vive Fox. I've never heard of that branding or any of that, but hey, you never know, right, with these. On the front, they have a lot of information: turbo mode, dual motors, wireless connection, motion controls, macro buttons. So it looks like right down here, we have a turbo button and a macro button. It is an odd placement, I will say, for those, but we'll see how those feel when we get them out. It is at a strange kind of angle here, right? I don't know if they are looking to try to make it more ergonomic rather than mash them up against each other and maybe it feel a little cramped. I'm starting to think this might be set up better for any people with like maybe larger hands, medium to large sized hands, just the way it's all spread out and the way it looks there. On the side, looks like we just have a side view of one and then the other there. On the back, they do tell us what comes with it: a gaming pad, one Type-C charging cable, black grip stand, user manual. It looks like these might actually charge on the side. That'll be interesting to see how that goes. 300 milliamp hours. This is smaller than what's in the Joy-Con controllers from Nintendo, so I don't know how long these will actually last in terms of battery life. I didn't see anything specific that was mentioned, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that's probably like 6 or 7 hours of battery life at the most, because these are probably also using kind of the older type rumble motors. So let's go ahead, and now we looked around the box, let's go ahead and open this guy up right here. And we can see right away, it looks like they have it just in like this plastic shell. Oh, look at that. Okay, right away, I'm noticing, I'm gonna put this to the side. The joysticks are like the Pro Controller sticks. So we know, of course, with the Joy-Con controllers, the travel is not great, right? So if you're playing like a first-person shooter, you might feel a little limited with how well the Joy-Con joysticks can move. I mean, here, look, let me go ahead and get this guy out. I mean, look at that compared to the Joy-Con joystick. Like, it looks like it has just way more travel overall. This is seemingly a full joystick that we would have on like a Xbox One, PlayStation 4, or Switch Pro controller, which I do like, because I do notice this at times, right, where you just don't get that kind of travel, whereas here, this is a full-on joystick. That's pretty cool. It reminds me of those Daemon X Machina Joy-Cons. Remember, those had a lot of limitations, but one of the really cool things about them was that it had the full stick, which was great for shooters. So that's a big plus immediately right out of the box that I noticed. I don't know how sold I am on square buttons, like these rounded kind of square buttons. However, they are tactile feeling. Got the little lights actually flickering in there, so we have some battery power to it. Great. Plus minus at the top there. D-pad does not feel great. Feels like a bunch of tactile buttons underneath of it. Kind of like, think about if we took a D-pad and put it over the Joy-Cons now, right? That like on the left side, that's kind of what this feels like, just with, believe it or not, less travel, less of a tactile feel. Does seem that we can press all the way down on the center and start hitting multiple points. Don't know how great this D-pad is gonna be. And then we have our home button here, and then we have our snapshot button there, and then we have turbo and our macro button. I don't know if I'm I don't know if that's a great spot. I mean, I guess it's hard to accidentally press them. Anytime you can have some sort of macro button set up or a way to kind of have a button shortcut, I like it more or less being on the back here so you can kind of hit it with one of your fingers. Let's see, we have ZR, ZL, L and R. Those feel fine as well. I don't know what this is exactly here. That's strange. I don't think there's any actual connection between these. This is just a grip. Yeah, it doesn't appear to be. I'm not really sure what this is. Maybe that's just a design decision where they have what looks almost like an IR blaster at the top there. It's also on the bottom here. Interesting. Now looking at this grip, it is set up to try to, I guess, make it so your hands aren't as cramped together. And I'm noticing that it puts it at a bit of an angle so that I guess it's just easier for you to hold it. The dog face controller, even for the Switch Joy-Cons, can be a little strange and you get kind of this claw grip. You don't get it as much here, but it is still slightly more cramped. You know what, if these are kind of the built-in grips they have here, if these were just a little further, right, like a little more, I think your palm would have a bit more to kind of wrap around or grip to. Not quite the same though here, but it is better than the Joy-Con itself, which has like nothing, right? There's not a lot of area to kind of hold on to. This at least has something there. I will say I'm not immediately sold on the texture of these controllers, these Joy-Con. I would have liked if they did some sort of like dotted texture around just to try to give it some extra grip to it, because as it stands now, the grip is not great. It still kind of slides around in the hand. Now it does appear to come with a USB-C cable. So it's two USB-C cables here, but then it goes to one USB type A cable. And the idea there, I guess, is that you can charge both of them while off of the Switch. I'll have to see if the Switch sees it like to charge. A lot of times we get a little like lightning bolt, I believe, next to it if it needs to be charged more. Hopefully it can, and of course we'll be opening one of these as well just to make sure there is some sort of connection there. But I guess that's just because this wouldn't fit in any Joy-Con accessories or charging stands, since it has kind of this large grip coming out of the bottom. So hopefully that's the only reason for this. I really hope that the system itself can charge these, because otherwise if you had to take them off if these are dying to then plug in would be kind of annoying. So first impressions of it sliding on, it has an okay click there. Yeah, it's not as, we'll say, purposeful as like when this guy sits on there and it gets a nice little clunk at times on that click, but it does at least drop in there okay. It has, you can see it does push out quite a bit here, so it's not going to lay flat anymore. It's not bad though, it's off by just a little bit, so that's not too bad. Let's go ahead and turn this guy on here. Okay, looks like it syncs right up. Got the volume up kind of loud there. It looks like it syncs right up, so no worries there. We have the D-pad left and right. D-pad seems okay. Again, it doesn't, the problem I have with this D-pad is it feels kind of mushy, even though it should be tactile, because you can kind of feel the tactileness, but it's not like as, I guess, crisp, you'd say, as like this, where you get an actual click. I don't know, it feels just kind of mushy overall for this, but the sticks, these feel really, really good. Okay, we have them off here in kind of the split grip. It is better. Like I said, we have a bit more to grab onto here at the bottom, but still the stick is a little off to where you still kind of have this empty palm grip, I guess we can say. But again, it still feels much better than the regular Joy-Cons when it comes to being able to hold them in the hand. Let's take a look, find the controller, see if we get what kind of rumble we get here. Yep, that would be an older rumble style, so that is not like the haptic feedback, for example, but let's jump into a game. We'll actually jump into Crisis here and try them out. All right, so here we are in Crisis. I attached the Joy-Con controllers to the system. I think it feels a lot better like that, obviously, because they have these large sticks kind of sticking off of it. So to be able to grip them and move them around better is a lot easier when you have the entire system being picked up like this. When they are off of the system, like this, it is a little more cumbersome in the hand to be able to use them. So let me go ahead and sync these up. But I do want to show you that, there we go. I do want to show you that the Joy-Con does have gyro motions. There we go, you can move it around. And that is good because while we did get these kind of sticks on the Daemon X Machina Joy-Con controllers, it was missing a ton of features. And those were actually a little more expensive than these when they released. These ones have things like rumble, of course, batteries so they can be wireless. And the idea of gyro is much nicer too. It also has this turbo functionality here. So I think if I press and hold this down, and then press the button there, it's going crazy right now shooting. So we'll turn that off. There we go. Turbo functionality in Crisis, just in case, I guess you got to run through a field of enemies. So with the macro button here, we went ahead and enabled that. Now we can just kind of do different things. I'm just going to duck a bunch of times. And now I guess if we press that, what should happen is it should just do that same input press. So it's just having me crouch over and over again like I inputted. So we do have our macro and our turbo buttons right down here. An odd place, but I guess it is harder technically to press them by accident. And the final test here, let's see if this Joy-Con can turn on the Switch itself. Originally, when these accessories were coming out, none of them seemed to be able to do it. Finally, now a lot of these accessories that come out will turn on the Switch, which is good news. So here we go. Let's see if this one can do it as well. We'll just go ahead and press and hold the home button down and see if it comes on. Oh, look at that. It came right on. So good news there. This one should then also sync up right there, and we're good. So good news there, they do turn on the Switch. So now we're gonna go ahead and take one of these apart. I grabbed the left one with the D-pad because I'm always curious about what the D-pad looks like inside. So it looks like we just have a couple of Phillips head screws to deal with here, nothing too crazy, and the back should come off. So there are a few things I would like to check out inside. Of course, that joystick, which I do think is just a standard joystick from like an Xbox controller as an example. And then of course, I want to check out the rail here just to make sure we have a connection from the board to it. So this is kind of different. It looks like the front comes off first. That's a lot different than I'm used to for these different Joy-Cons. Usually you unscrew it and the back comes off. One screw fell out, the other ones are still in there, but the front comes off. So we can get an immediate look at the joystick, which does indeed look like a joystick from like a standard third-party controller. It doesn't look like it's the exact same ones that you would find in like an Xbox One controller, but it is very smooth. And when you move it around, it does feel fairly responsive. So yes, this at least does look like a full joystick that you would find in a normal controller. The D-pad is exactly what I figured it would be. Kind of reminds me of what's on like a 3DS. So think of that D-pad actually. If you've used those, it's basically a larger version of that for the most part. Kind of squishy, you know, on that. So it does look like we do have connection here. Looking at it to the railing, we do have little teeth down here connecting, so that's good news, which tells me it should be charging the battery as well when it's plugged in. The railing does come apart here. It looks like it just runs down and underneath plugging in right there. And it looks like at that point, the whole board will lift out. And it doesn't look like there's a ton going on here. It does also have a separate connection to the joystick board right here. That also has our buttons for our back ZL button here. And then we have our battery underneath, and this is our large rumble motor. It is an older type of rumble motor like I was figuring it would be when I started feeling how it was. It is just gonna spin in here and do the basic stuff. Nothing too crazy, no haptic feedback. I am waiting for the first third-party controller to take a shot at that. I think that'll be really cool when that happens, if it happens. The board down here also holds our USB-C charge port right here. And then since a lot of people tend to wonder where the antenna is, since we had antenna problems on the original Joy-Con, I think they found a pretty good spot for it, I'll say. I'm trying to think if you would be prone to covering it up. I'm gonna say you probably would not be for this one. So the antenna appears to be part of the board itself, and you can kind of see it etched in right here, where it's kind of this square and then this line coming off of it. That appears to be the antenna itself. And if you kind of see where it folds over to, it's right on this side, and you would not be covering that at all. So I would say they did a pretty good job designing this board for the most part. I'm not a fan of this D-pad really at all. It's not great. Again, it feels like the 3DS one. And then really taking up this whole spot down here with the old archaic motor. I would like to see haptic feedback attempted, but I also assume that means the price would jump from half of what the Joy-Con cost to maybe like 3/4 and up. Now, there are some people who tend to prefer a heavier controller in the hand. I'm one of those people. Light controllers are always weird to me. Like when the 6-axis controller came out, it was just strange. These controllers, because they tend to have like the older rumble motors in there, are heavier mostly. So like this, for example, does feel heavier in the hand than like a Joy-Con controller. So if you're someone who prefers a heavier controller, keep that in mind. Anyway, guys, that's gonna do it here for the Vive Fox wireless Joy-Con controllers for the Switch. Joy-Con controllers are really coming a long way, specifically the third-party ones. I remember reviewing some of these way back when the Switch first came out. It feels like it was forever ago, right? But they were not as advanced as they are now, and you know what? They are becoming, I would say, pretty good replacements for Joy-Con controllers from Nintendo, especially if you are looking for a pair for maybe a younger kid or some friends that come over occasionally. You don't want to spend like 80 bucks to get first-party ones because you're worried they're gonna mess them up. But honestly, you might be someone who would prefer this because of the sticks having better travel, maybe feeling a bit heavier, for example, just overall, or maybe you like the ergonomics. I gotta say, this is not bad, and at $43, it's a pretty decent pickup. Let me know what you guys think about the Vive Fox Joy-Con controllers. If you've already picked them up, if you think they're a little strange looking, especially when they're in their grip. It's different, I guess, right? Thanks guys for watching. Make sure you like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you next time.